Yeah, so one of the things that I've noticed so far in my own life on the spiritual journey is that the more spiritual you make it, for me at least, it seems like the less transformative and real it actually is. And so I'm someone who has always been a very deep thinker. I've always loved theology and philosophy, and I've loved like these deep existential questions of reality. So, I've been in my headspace a lot, and I love to read and I love to study. So, yeah, like when I got into the spiritual journey, I was like, okay, I've got to go study all the different ancient spiritual traditions and learn this meditation and this practice and this mantra and this yogic path and all this stuff. And it was good because I guess it gave me somewhat of like an understanding of the different mystical traditions and how these men and women for thousands of years have been experiencing the divine. So that was good because it gave me that like confidence and assurance of, hey, you know what? Like whatever it is I'm experiencing, like I'm not the only person that has experienced this. Like, no, there's been people that have been experiencing this forever, and they have their own interpretations of it, and they have their own teachings on it, but it's essentially the same, like, reality or the same experience at the core. But what happened was, like, I got so into it, and I got so confused because I was like, well, wait a second, like, they're all essentially saying the same thing. They're using different words, and they have their own, like, traditional influence, but I'm like, well, is there a better path? And like, should I be meditating more? Or should I try this yogic path out? Or do I need to go back to praying and like viewing God as like in this relational sense? And then, what about like all these daily things? And like it just became it became too much, and it was like I'm defeating the entire purpose of why I started this journey to begin with. And then I got into like these deep esoteric concepts, and what I noticed was it was all fascinating. It was all like mind bending, and I like that kind of stuff. Like I said, I'm a deep thinker, but it just caused me to be in my headspace way too much, and it was like I was overthinking everything, and I like I said, I already think too much, and I've dealt with a lot of anxiety and OCD, so that wasn't helping me. That wasn't helping my journey. And for many people, it has tremendously helped them, and they've experienced tremendous benefits on their like certain paths and their specific practices, and even with like diet stuff, implementing the diet stuff into the spiritual practice and observing this and that and the rituals and whatever, like, cool, that's fine. Like, that's worked for a lot of different people. But for me, it just, like, the way my mind would take it, it would just overcomplicate all of it. And I would end up being, like, frustrated and confused and pissed off and just, like, trying to, like, figure out why I kept getting into these cycles of disappointment. And so there was never a time where I was like, well, what if, like, it wasn't fear-based. It wasn't like I was sitting there thinking, oh, what if I choose the wrong religion or mystical path or practice? Like, is there some deity somewhere up in the heavens who's some like ultimate judge or a king, and he's going to judge me for like not believing in the right theology? No, I moved past that a long time ago. Like, that was years ago when I stepped out of that whole like fundamentalist dualistic version of God and like the fear of hell and the fear of judgment. So it wasn't that. It was just more of like just this mentality and this mindset of I've gotta like I want to experience enlightenment right here, right now. So what do I have to do? Like, what's the best practice? What's the best method to experience that? And a big part of my journey is meditation, and I know many of you who have watched my videos, that I talk about that a lot. And even with meditation, I spent a lot of time studying that, which was good because for me, I had to unlearn a lot of the different things I had been taught on meditation. I had a lot of misconceptions and misunderstandings that had to be like deprogrammed before I could actually start meditating. But one of the reasons why I like meditation so much is because I never really got too much into like all the different kinds of meditation. You know, depending on which mystical tradition we're talking about, it's going to come with its own or like different forms of meditation within that tradition. And a lot of times, believe it or not, like I'll see people like arguing about which kind of meditation is the best meditation. And I'm like what the hell? Like, you're sitting here talking about how enlightened you are and how much of a advanced meditator you are, and you're always living from this blissed out state of peace and joy, yet you're going to argue with someone about what the correct meditation practice is. Like, come on, really? Like, that's revealing where you're really at just by you having that approach, and you like needing to prove that your meditation is the correct and like one and only way to meditate. That's revealing that that's just like whatever it is you're embodying is just another egoic role. It's the spiritual ego, right? Which is something that is really easy to get caught up in. But yeah, like when I started meditating, it was just so I don't even know if you could call it meditation. It was just so personal and so individual, and I wasn't doing like any of the proper meditative positions. Like, I wasn't in the lotus position. I wasn't humming a certain mantra, and I wasn't doing any particular technique within the meditation. I was just like, just being. I was just sitting there, and I was just being aware of everything that I was experiencing in that moment. And I was noticing my thoughts, I was noticing my feelings, my emotions, the tendencies that I have to like grab on to certain thought patterns and become controlled by those thought patterns. So meditation for me was it was self-taught. I wasn't really influenced by any of the specific kinds of meditation practices that I was reading about and learning about from the ancient spiritual traditions. And that really helped me, because what meditation eventually showed me was that the spiritual path, if we even want to call it the spiritual path, you can call it whatever you want, words are words. But what it ultimately showed me was that like my life, my journey, my spiritual journey, if you want to call it that, is ultimately the path of authenticity. It's the path of like understanding that for me, the best way for me to actually like experience my inherent wholeness and liberation, which is pretty much what every spiritual seeker is trying to achieve. But what I realized was, like, for me, the best way for me to experience that directly was by following my own intuitive heart. It was by listening to my own inner guidance and allowing just like my authentic being to be, if that makes sense. And so that in and of itself became my spiritual practice, if you want to call it a spiritual practice or a path. But I don't even like calling it that, because there's not really a name. As soon as you put a name to it, you kind of like diminish the beauty of the authentic path. And so what it taught me was, okay, this is how I experience God. And by the way, like for me, meditation went from being like a practice I was doing to like understand my true self and my inner divinity to just a lifestyle, a way of being. And God, it's so freeing. Like, to have no reliance on like any kind of system or like a spiritual group or tradition or like a list of rules or commandments or like a external spiritual authority. Like, when you realize that everything you've been searching for is already within you, and you are so much powerful, you are so much more powerful than you think, it's life-changing, it's liberating. So anyway, yeah, like through meditation and through just like learning how to be myself, that's where I actually experienced the most healing. And I was able to live from surrender. You know, I was trusting the universe a lot more, because I was really starting to believe that like my life, my path, my journey is something that like everything I'm experiencing is what I need to experience. It's part of my curriculum. And then what happened was, like, spirituality became super simple and mundane and common and ordinary. Like I wasn't equating it with like, enlightenment or 10 hours of meditation or doing this practice or this whatever. It was just like, no, it's just like being human. Like all of a sudden being human again became like, it was like the resurrection of the true spiritual authentic path. So it was like, I was more present, and I noticed that in my relationships, the connection was better. I noticed that like I had deeper appreciation for life and for nature and gratitude for just everything. And it just completely changed the world that I was living in. It completely shifted my perspective. And what it led me to understand was that, like I said, notice like the way I said it earlier. I said the experience of my inherent wholeness and my inherent liberation, because that's the truth for each and every one of us. Like we are already free, we are already whole, we are already complete. However, we've been conditioned and programmed to live according to lies, and these lies have been keeping us from what is and the truth of our inherent wholeness. So yeah, like I was able to, through like letting go of all these different things, which, of course, meditation helped me with this, but it was my own version of meditation. And I had these different like things I would do in the meditation that I would never like even share on here because it's personal to me, it's intimate to me. And like I think it's very important to keep your path, your practice to a degree, like keep a level of it intimate and personal. Like don't tell anybody what you do when you're like having that time of just, introspection or whatever it is you do to experience the divine or whatever. So like, I remember when I was a Christian, like we used to talk about how your relationship with God should be a very personal thing. And when you're spending time with God, like that's between you and God, that's no one else's business. And so that kind of translates over to what I'm experiencing now. Like, of course, like I said earlier, I don't believe in some external deity, and I'm not like sitting there praying and trying to talk to him up there in the sky somewhere. However, I am experiencing the divine from this unitive sense, and from the sense of the divine being one with my being and everything else. And so it is this transcendence of going beyond the mind, entering the heart space, and then allowing my consciousness to expand. So that is my time with God, if you want to call it that. But again, like I still have that same approach. I had the same approach I did when I was a Christian, and I would go and pray and spend time with the Lord. Like it's that same private, personal intimacy for the experience of life, for the experience of the divine mystery. I like calling it that. I like calling it the divine mystery. So, yeah, like there's this whole process, there's this whole unfolding of self-discovery and realizing who you really are when you realize that it's okay to be yourself. In fact, you being real is the highest vibrational frequency that there is, I think. Maybe someone might disagree with me, like some kind of spiritual vibrational expert, but whatever, like, I don't know. I think for me, in my experience at least, when I am like living authentically and just being myself, I'm more present. And when I'm more present, my vibrational frequency is at its highest. And yeah, you could say love and peace are up there, but I think authenticity, there's just something about it. There's something so refreshing and so real. And what you'll notice is it's like when you're being authentic, you become super magnetic. So it's like the universe just starts to the universe has a way of mirroring that energy back to you, and there's a flow to your life. So you become more attractive in like every sense, and then you start to repel like the things that are not in alignment with your authenticity. And so like sometimes your energy, your frequency of being real, of being free, will irritate those who are not free, who are fake, who are not real. That's part of life. That's part of this journey. So just kind of be aware of that, because that will happen. But it doesn't matter, because when you're free of your egoic self, then you're free of all other people and their judgments and their opinions and what they think and what they say. Like, none of it matters anymore, because like, you realize you don't need their validation or their approval to be free, to be whole, because you already are that, and you're living from that. You're living from the heart. So yeah, like for me, it's been this journey of learning more about myself, and learning that so much of the things I'd been searching for in the first 20 years of my life were things that like I didn't have to really seek and spend so much time studying to figure it out, because these qualities and these truths were always within me. And I know that's a popular saying, like especially in mystical spirituality, everyone's like, oh, it's the kingdom of God is within you. The divine is within you. The Buddha is within you. The Christ is within you. It's all within you. But it's like, yeah, well, what the hell does that mean? Like, are you talking about, like, is there some like divine organ within? Like, what does that mean that the God is within me? And I used to like think about that a lot, because I became obsessed with that whole theology, with that whole idea of the divine being within when I first heard it, and it changed my life. But then it was like, okay, I want to directly experience this. I want to have some kind of encounter or some kind of transformation where I can say, yeah, like this became something real for me. I experienced the kingdom of heaven within, and now I'm like a brand new person. So, but what I learned was, even with that, even with this truth of the divine being within, essentially what the path of life is, what a human incarnation is this journey of remembering. It's remembering that all these things that you've been like trying to attain and achieve outside of yourself have always been within you, but not in the sense of it like being something that's like within your body. It's like, the better way of saying it is, you're like, what you're seeking and searching for is you. And that's like the next level of it. And I think the whole language of like it being within is kind of like the bridge language before you get to that level of being able to like explain to someone that it fundamentally is you. But yeah, so it's that. And then what I'm saying with authenticity is that your authenticity, like the way you experience the divine within is by being authentic. Because when you're authentic, you're in alignment with what is. You're experiencing the Tao. You're experiencing oneness with God. And it's just pure beingness, and it just flows. And you're not like trying to do anything. You're just being. And that's the secret, if you even want to call it a secret. It's not really a secret, but it's been hidden. It's been suppressed by these different like religious institutions. But like, yeah, that's what it is. So it's you're being yourself, and then I think while you're in this human incarnation, what determines whether or not you can actually experience this divine nature of yours, and this is where a lot of people like are stuck, or they just don't know. But when you understand the body and you understand like your human form, your incarnation, you have to realize that your physical body is not separate from this earth. It actually is the earth. All of the elements that make up your physical body are found in the earth around you. So when you start to align your physical body with nature, when you spend more time in your natural environment, which is outside, and you're grounding and you're getting sunlight, and your diet's in alignment with your physical body, and that can look different for everyone as well, depending on where you live and things like that. I think it's really, for me at least, I think that if you can try to eat like locally grown food, or just any kind of food in general that is local to where you live, I think that's really beneficial. But anyway, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole in that conversation of diet and debating different diets and what's the best, because that's a whole another like thing where you have all these diet gurus and experts who are like trying to prove to you like this is the one, this is the best. Like, this is what I'm saying, no matter what like aspect of life we're talking about, you're gonna find these people who are trying to like convert you to their one and only way, right? We find it in religion, we find it in politics, we find it in the diet world. Like, there's all these different aspects of life where we find people trying to do this. And the problem is, the reason there's so much debate and argument in all these different fields of life is because like our human incarnation, us being human, is a very individual game. And that's what I'm saying. Like, even with spirituality, like it's not a one size fits all. And that's what makes it beautiful. That's what makes it special. That's what makes it like meaningful. And yeah, like once you get that, it's so freeing. It's so liberating. Yeah. So anyway, what was I saying? Yeah, nature. So nature is the one thing I think that like, because all of our bodies are obviously like one with the earth and are made up of all the different elements that the earth is made up of, like in order to really have that authentic divine spark within us start to express itself in a unique way, I think part of that journey is like learning how to connect with nature in your own unique way. And what do I mean by that? Well, like, okay, do you like going to the beach? Do you like going to the mountains? Do you like being in a forest? Do you like open fields? Like, do you feel like when you're in an open field, your mind like calms down and you're just like in this spacious state and it's just liberating and you feel your heart space like start to come alive and it expands and there's a energetic field that's coming from it and you just feel connected? Like, that's what I'm talking about. Like, when you're in nature, what's the setting, what's the environment, what's going on to where you feel like, yeah, this is like me, like there's a resonance there, you know? That's what I mean. But I do think, because like I said, we are experiencing human life through a physical body, through this vehicle of form, I do think that it is important to really discover how like being in nature in and of itself is just like totally life-changing. And that is something you can discover for yourself. And you know that like, okay, if I'm indoors all day long and I'm just staring at a screen and I'm not getting fresh air, like something doesn't feel right, you know? So yeah, having that ground, having that starting place of I'm getting back to the basics, I'm going to start spending more time outside in nature, I'm going to start getting sunlight and drinking more water and eating whole foods that are real foods, and you know, whatever diet aligns best with me and makes me feel the best. Like, when I start to put all of those things into place, then maybe that is going to be the very thing that sets me up for being able to like start sitting and meditating and just being still and allowing like this true authentic nature to start revealing itself beyond all my different like egoic attachments and roles and tendencies and all the stuff that blocks the truth of who we are. So yeah, like that's all I really have to say. You know, if you're in a season where you just feel like, I don't know, like what's next, I don't know what I'm supposed to believe in anymore, I would definitely say like consider dropping the belief stuff, because like the belief stuff when it comes to spirituality or God never really works out. It just ends up being blind faith most of the time, and it just causes more frustration and more negativity and more confusion. So do what you want, but for me, belief made things a lot more complicated. I became a lot more interested in direct experience and knowing and just like realness, like I'm saying, just realness, embracing being human, cultivating positive, healthy relationships, spending time in nature, and just living a simple life. You want to talk about raise your frequency? Live a simple life. Don't think that peace or joy or happiness comes when you add things to your life. It doesn't. It comes with subtraction. It comes with this sense, this approach of letting go and surrender, and listening to your intuitive heart and allowing it to guide you through life, no matter what anyone else is trying to tell you or persuade you into or whatever. Like, no, it's not it. And I'm telling you that from experience. So, yep, I think that's it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.